Good morning and welcome to our virtual Black History Month program. Each year in February, we celebrate the contributions of African Americans that they've made to the country. And this is our very first diversity program of the year, and it happens to fall on 2/22/22. So I think that that means our program is going to be twice as educational, twice as inspirational, and twice as fun. So this year, our theme throughout all of our programs is technology. And I think that we have always depended on technology in one way or another, but I think that we can all agree that over these last 2 years, we've depended on it a little bit more than we ever have. Thanks to technology, we are able to have this program today, and I think that we're all pretty grateful for that. So today you are going to hear from 4 panelists who are leaders in the technology industry. Thank you all for being willing to participate in today's discussion. And I also would like to thank our very own April Greenhouse, who will moderate the panel discussion. Thank you again to everyone for joining us today. I'm confident that this is going to be a great discussion. And finally, thank you to all of you all who participated in our 5 days of Black History trivia. I'm sure that you all learned a lot about the impact that African Americans have had in technology. And just want to thank you all again. Hope that you learn a lot. And Karen, I am turning it over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Raina. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Kaufman, Chief Human Resources Officer at Metro, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Metro's Black History Month celebration. This is our second virtual Black History Month program, and I know for every program we keep saying we hope to be able to hold them again in person soon, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that this will be the year for that. We're here today to recognize and celebrate the vital role that African Americans have played in the development and progress of America throughout our history. We're proud of the diverse workforce here at Metro and recognize the contributions that our employees make to the agency and to the community every day. I want to thank our President and CEO, Tom Lambert, for his strong support of our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Also, thank you to our Board of Directors for their support. We are pleased to have some of our board members at our program today, and several of them will be speaking. Sanjay Ram is our incoming new board chair, Jim Robinson, our vice chair, Chris Hollins, Troy Taylor, and Bob Fry are with us today. I also want to acknowledge Karen Patman, the outgoing Metro board chair, for her support of gender and other diversity initiatives throughout her tenure. Thanks to the HR Employee Relations and EEO teams for their hard work on the program. During Black History Month, they've been sending out information and trivia questions based on the contributions of African Americans to our heritage. We have 4 outstanding panelists today who will be sharing their experiences in the technology field, and we appreciate their time with us. Again, thanks for joining us today and enjoy the program. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Robinson, our vice chair of the board, and then following Mr. Robinson, Mr. Taylor and Mr. Hollins will be speaking. And then if either of the other board members want to, just let us know. Thank you. And Mr. Taylor is our secretary of the board. So thank you very much. Mr. Robinson.
Well, thank you, Karen. And let me begin by saying good morning to all of our employees who have joined in for the program today, and a special welcome to the very distinguished panelists that will be bringing us today's message. I'm very glad to be here with you today for this annual Black History Month celebration. This is a celebration that honors the contributions Black Americans and the indelible impact they've made on our country. We could write a separate history, if you will, praising your dedication to Metro and what that daily commitment means to the thousands of our residents and the visitors who rely on Metro for basic transportation needs. Regarding history, though, knowledge of the past is vital as it helps give context to the present and the means to plan for a brighter future. Unfortunately, today in many states, we are falling even further away from helping students learn and understand the historical significance of the Black American experience. Even now, there are those whose misguided efforts seek to ban history lessons that detail the abuses Black Americans have suffered by calling such study critical race theory. Under a new law in Texas, for example, public school teachers must frame slavery as a deviation from the founding principles of the United States. And the law limits the teaching of material that explores the continuing legacy of slavery in the United States and highlights the contributions that Black people have made and make daily to American society. These trends are extremely disturbing to me. They discredit the honored legacy of courage, perseverance, and innovative vision by which Black Americans have contributed significantly to the success and prosperity of this nation. It makes me proud to live in a community and to serve on the board of an agency which recognizes and honors that contribution. I hope our event today provides all of us with an opportunity to celebrate and reflect on those contributions, as well as the sacrifices of Black Americans, not just during the month of February, but every day of the year. I look forward to today's program.
Good morning, everybody. I look forward to this event every year. And I say it every year, but Raina and Karen, you guys, you do an amazing job. I don't know when you start to look for the panelists and to craft the agendas, but all of the programs that you guys put on are always extremely diverse and they teach a lot. The thing I'll point out here is representation matters. It matters. There was something I heard years ago that said you should always hang out with inspiration. And I think this is what these type of programs do. It's important to see your faces. It's important to hear your journeys. It's important to hear your struggles, the authentic struggles, because what it does for those that are listening is it tells them that even where you are with your imperfections and the shortcomings, there's still a path to achieve something that's extraordinary. So I look forward to hearing your stories. I appreciate you for being vulnerable enough to stand out and be in the gap for us. And I look forward to the program. So thank you for your participation, and we'll sit and watch and learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor and Mr. Hollins.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. I'm board member Chris Hollins, and I'm very proud to be here with you all today. I'm also proud to serve as one of Metro's board members who happens to be a member of the Black community. And so before I get started, I just want to say thank you to fellow board members Rom, Robinson, and Taylor for your service to Houston and to the Metro organization. And I also want to extend my thanks to the amazing panelists that are joining us here today. Now, today, this celebration not only highlights the achievements and contributions of African Americans, but it also serves to inspire us to reach our goals and never give up, even when circumstances seem insurmountable. It's important that we recognize and celebrate Black history because the world would be a very different place had it not been for the contributions and achievements of African Americans. For centuries, this country was built by Africans who were brought here against their will. But still, millions more people of African descent have come to the American shores in search of a better future and to build the American dream for them and for their families. You know, so many of us have benefited from and been inspired by the poetry of folks like Maya Angelou, the music of Ray Charles, and the inventions of George Washington Carver. And we can only imagine what life would be like without the activism of people like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks. And of course, there are so many other African-American leaders and innovators who have made contributions closer to home. One of those is Metro's first African-American female president and CEO, Shirley DeLibero, who was instrumental in the creation of Houston's light rail line. Her efforts helped to bring this transformative form of public transportation to fruition in Houston. I also want to recognize Metro's first African-American female police chief, Vera Bumpers, who successfully leads more than 200 police officers and staff to ensure the safety of Metro's passengers. And every single day, Metro is powered by more than 2,000 Black employees who keep our trains and buses running and who serve millions of Houston riders every year. And so today, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your priceless contributions to our city, to our society, to our community. Happy Black History Month, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hollins. And unless Mr. Rom or Mayor Fry would like to speak, Tom Lambert, I will turn it over to you, our president and CEO.
Well, let me show you the passion that our board has for this program and these type of programs to really celebrate the diversity of this organization and the quality of things we do for this community. I actually have a majority of the board on today, so y'all can't talk to each other. So I want to make sure y'all know that. But that is a representation of the commitment of this agency to celebrate diversity and inclusion in this organization and in this community. I want to join all the board members again by thanking everyone for joining in the celebration of Black History Month. You know, Black history is America's history. It is rich with genius, creativity, perseverance, and hope. African men and women, some famous, others unknown, have been instrumental in building and elevating our nation. But perhaps most importantly, they have brought us closer to the American dream of freedom, equality, and opportunity for all. And using that experience as a lens can help us understand what it means to be an American. We live in a very complex world where diversity forms the fabric of modern society. Metro is committed to inclusivity and diversity. We're an organization made up of different people achieving extraordinary things to serve our region's growing transportation needs and enhancing the quality of life in our community. Our diversity is our strength. Our diversity is what helps us analyze challenges from new perspectives. Our diversity is what helps us empathize, and our diversity is what helps us innovate. And most importantly, it's our diversity that helps us connect to the communities and the people we serve each and every day in this region. I'm extremely proud of this agency and all that it has accomplished. Houston Metro is a model for other transit agencies throughout this country, but that success would not have been possible if not for the hardworking employees of this agency, the passion and commitment of the Metro Board of Directors, including everyone in this virtual room, and the diversity of our entire organization. So Karen, you and Raina and Ruben, thank you again for this program. I look forward to listening and learning, and thank everybody for joining in again today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lambert. April, you're up next.
Good morning. I have the privilege of introducing our panel of esteemed IT professionals. We have Ms. Danielle Anderson. Danielle is a highly accomplished director of digital technology with 22 years of demonstrated success in driving innovation and collaboration across teams. In her current role as ABM Industries Information Security Director in the Cyber Information Security Office, she's responsible for identity and access management, transformation, business continuity management, and IT disaster recovery, and IT partnerships with legal risk and internal audit. As a certified ITIL service management expert and Six Sigma Green Belt, Mrs. Anderson has established herself as the go-to person that senior leadership teams turn to for implementing effective change management and digital transformation strategies that deliver business results. And we have Mrs. Farrell Prestige. She serves as HCC's Chief Information Officer and Vice Chancellor for Information Technology, and is HCC's first African-American and female CIO. She has acquired extensive experience that includes over 15 years of executive level IT management experience and over 25 years of diverse information technology and industry engagement. Ms. Prestige is an accomplished digital technology professional with a history of skilled stakeholder relationship building techniques and a resourceful and respected professional with proven accomplishments in the technology industry. Next, we have Mr. Charles Thompson. He is the CEO at the Port of Houston Authority. Mr. Thompson served as CIO, I said CEO, excuse me. He served as CIO in various cities and public school systems. Before beginning his career in the public sector, Charles worked in the private sector as a systems engineer, system analyst, and consultant with IBM, NYNEX Business Systems, Synoptics, and Bay Networks. He also spent 2 years as a senior manager in Seoul, Korea with Cisco Systems. And we have Mr. Robert D. Scott. He serves as Vice President and Dean for the Global Institute for Professional Development of the IT Senior Management Forum, which is a national organization dedicated exclusively to fostering upper-level executive talent among African-American IT professionals. Mr. Scott recently retired as special counsel from the University of Michigan, where he supported the diversity and outreach strategy for programs across the engineering college. His background includes demonstrated leadership in strategic planning and analysis, IT management, product distribution, and global learning systems. Mr. Scott also serves as a Cutter Fellow with consulting responsibilities to CIOs and other senior IT executives. And now I'm going to dive into the questions, and thank you all for joining us today. The first question is for Danielle. What advice do you have for those who want to be in the tech field, but are concerned about the lack of representation from the African-American community?
So thank you, April. And I want to thank everyone with Metro for inviting me today. So April, I would say, go for it, right? If you have a desire, go for it. Don't let anything stop you. I mean, I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and 20 plus years ago, when I first started, I was a lot of times the only in the room, right? The only female, the only African-American represented. Fast forward to today, of course, the room looks better, right? We have more diversity, but still the African-American Black population is still underrepresented within our tech environment, right? I'll share some statistics that I looked at around the workforce data, right? That was published by some of our tech companies. And not to really, shame on the tech companies, but just to really highlight, hey, where we really need to have some work here. So for instance, Amazon, 21% of their population makes up the Black African-American population. Microsoft, 4.1%, Facebook, 3.8%, and Google, 2.7%. So there's still a lot of work that we need to do. And this is just the tech industry. So if we look across the board at other industries and other companies, we can probably see very similar statistics there that we really need to ensure that we continue to bring in good talent, from outside, people who may have an interest. I found out throughout my career, being a hiring manager, a lot of successes have been with people who have never even thought that tech was going to be in their future, right? When I first started, I didn't think that I was going to be in the tech industry. I actually wanted to be in broadcast journalism. But someone challenged me and said, look, this is something that you should be doing. And so I took the leap of faith and I did it. So I would encourage anyone who has an interest, definitely do not let the fact that there is not a lot of representation from the African-American community. That's more of an indication to say, come on, let's be in those rooms. Let's put some diversity within the rooms, because we all know that when we have a diverse workforce, it's better for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Danielle. So my next question is for Farrell. How and when did you recognize that you had a passion for technology, and who in your life played a vital role in encouraging you to pursue your dreams?
Hi, April. First and foremost, happy Black History Month to everyone. And thank you for having us here. Thank you for having me here, inviting me to participate in the panel. To your question, I became interested in technology, I think long before I realized it was actually technology. I won't date myself, but when I was in high school, I was a good student, and I particularly loved math and English, which I'm told that those are kind of an interesting combination. But my then advisor encouraged me to look into a thing called a computer. And she suggested that that she believed that I would be a good COBOL coder in the future, and that would allow me to use both of my talents. Prior to that time, my parents were both educators, and as were many of my relatives and friends of the family as well. And so when I was very young, my interest was in, of course, becoming a teacher. And because that is what I had seen, that's what I knew them to do and what they were involved in. My mother, who was a teacher and an advisor as well, pulled me aside after I had expressed that to her on a number of occasions. And she said, "Sweetheart, we pretty much cornered the market on teaching. And so let that be your second choice, but I want you to discover a first choice." And so that helped to lead me into hearing and understanding and doing some discovery about the field of technology, as it were at that time.
Our next question is for Robert. What are common misconceptions that people have about African Americans in the tech industry? And how can we combat these misconceptions and communicate more effectively?
Thank you, April. And like the others, I want to extend my offer of thanks to Metro for inviting us here. I view this as an opportunity for the IT Senior Management Forum to connect with folks that look like us and get them understand that there are people out there that want to help them be lifted up and supported. And that's certainly what ITSMF is about. So my background includes, even before the University of Michigan, 32 years at this little mom and pop company in Cincinnati called Procter & Gamble. You may have heard of it. I was an IT executive there, and going all the way back in Farrell, I will say 1975 is when my career started. I was the only one in the room, and for many years I was the only one in the room. And then, as is now, African Americans in the tech field get tested. The assumption is I need to test them to make sure they deserve to be in the room. It's assumed that they need to be tested as opposed to assume that they have their act together. That has not changed. As I work with engineering students in the last 5 years, those students are finding themselves repeatedly tested by their faculty at the school, by their student peers, and by industry as they move out into the workforce. That is our reality. And with that being said, I think it is important to understand that that test will come. And so you have to be on top of your game. You know, it's always said that we have to work harder, run faster than anybody. Well, certainly in terms of understanding our technology and staying on top of trends and being able to articulate the technology, that is true. And so, number one, staying up to date and keeping your game tight as far as understanding technology is critically important. The other thing is this notion of protective hesitation. As people of color, we tend to want to speak when we got something to say. That ain't the way the world works. It's an engagement game. It's a contact sport. Mm-hmm. And so we need to lean in and engage. Think of it as being creative and willing to step up and put our ideas out there, because what we're doing is sending a signal that I'm in this game too, and I'm here to play and I'm here to win. So this notion of having your game tight and engaging are the two messages I think are critically important to be successful going forward.
Absolutely. And April, if I can just kind of add to what Robert is saying, you know, I totally agree that, once you're at the table, right? We hear all the time, and this may sound very cliche, but it rings so true that once you're in the room, be yourself, right? you have to be yourself. A lot of times I know early in my career, I tried to mimic my leaders or my coworkers who I saw that was successful, right? No, you need to be yourself, right? You're at the table for a reason, and your uniqueness, right? Whether it's your background, your skills, your education, etc., is what the organization needs from you. So be yourself, speak up, as Robert mentioned. Don't just, if you have something to say, speak up, right? The other couple of keys to success, I would say, is also no one ever succeeds alone, right? So you have to ensure that you find your team, right? Or your, what we call, in some, I've heard, board of directors, right? Those individuals that can help you. Some people who have gone to where you've been, right? Whether it's in the organization that you're in or outside the organization, you build that support group that has the same type of experience that you, Black, because as an African American within the tech industry, there are some things that we experience that our colleagues just don't experience, right? And so it's good to have that shared experience, have someone to speak to you, to have someone to speak to about the things that you are experiencing, so that you understand how did you navigate, right? I've also, late in my career, those are the things that I did. But, if I can tell anyone, do that sooner rather than later, because your group and your peers and who you surround yourself is going to mean quite a bit, because you're going to need people to advocate on your behalf that not necessarily, that's in the room making decisions. So look for those individuals that you can work with that can also help to build your team and help to provide you with some input.
Yeah, so my amen corner to what she just said is allies, coaches, mentors, and sponsors. You got to have allies, you have to have coaches, you have to have mentors that can help you with the savvy and style and skill and how the culture works. You got to have somebody who's in that room when the doors close that says, I'm going to speak for that person. I'm going to lift them up. Critically important.
And Charles, the next question's for you. What do you feel that organizations can do to nurture and maintain diverse talent in the field of technology?
I would start off by saying happy Black History Month to everyone on the call and the esteemed panel I happen to be a part of. I would say that if you're an IT professional and a true leader, you have a responsibility to cast a wider net, not just in your own organization, but a part of the community you're a part of that you're responsible for. And then go out to universities and have an opportunity to interact with them. And then as we start now, the reason why I did K through 12 education is because I realized that those ninth graders, by the time they get to college, the technology that they would see would turn over twice. So we have to even go deeper into the educational stack to get them prepared to be to take on the new technologies that we're talking about, the trends that are there. In the previous question, someone asked, what encouraged me to become an IT professional? I was going to be an electrical engineer, and I didn't like physics. So I learned about logic. And I saw this thing called the Klinger-Cohen Act of 1996, which defined the chief financial officer's role and the CIO's role. And I said, I'm going to become one of them. And I found coaches, alignments, and mentors to help me get there. But organizations have a responsibility via whether it's internships, casting a wider net to every university, especially diverse universities, to have a talent pool developed over time.
Thank you, Charles. And our next question is for Danielle. Can you talk a little bit about some of the specific ways that you have advocated for African Americans in technology and the successes and challenges that you have personally faced?
No, absolutely. Thank you. So, there's two areas where I focus, right? One being to attract the talent, right? So anytime that I post for a job, I make sure that I work with my talent acquisition recruiter, to ensure that we get diverse candidates. One thing I can share with you, I posted for a role, and I started to see that all of the candidates that I was provided with all had the similar background, education, frankly looked alike. And so we started asking, why am I continuously getting the same pool of people, right? What we come to identify, and it was more than just one recruiter, it was multiple recruiters at the time, providing me some with the same type of backgrounds, identified that we were going to the same types of schools, right? It was the oil and gas services. It was one of those things that, hey, this is where we source our resources from. And so historically, that's what we're going to do. And it's like, no, we need to ensure that we bring diversity to the table. So, you know, the other schools where we have a little bit more diversity, that's where we need to start pooling that, you know. And so we start to have those conversations in that, you know, what we've been looking for traditionally is not working. It does not give us the representation that we're looking for. And so that was one of the things that, you know, I ensured that we changed, is that we started to look at diversity and the schools that we were looking at, you know, the tech, you know, A&M, Texas A&M was not just we were typically getting Texas A&M and UT, right? It's like, no, let's expand that to Prairie View, right? And some of the other schools where TSU, where we have the diversity in the background. And so those were the things that, you know, I seen early in my career and things that I continue to carry on as I move from one company to another to ensure that we have diverse talent. The other thing is, as when you attract the talent, is also retention, right? What we have identified is that it's been very hard, especially with African-American females, is to retain that talent within the organizations. And so now you see a lot of organizations have diversity programs, right? Inclusion and diversity programs that really try to tap into the reason why we can't retain these employees, right? What is it? Is it, do they not feel the affinity once they're in the door, right? And to ensure, as we've mentioned before with Robert, having that mentor-mentee relationships with leaders that can say, okay, I've been where you are. Let me walk you through on how you, some of the obstacles that you may face, right? So it's things like that is really ensuring that once we retain the talent that we want, but we continue to have that dialogue and that conversation to ensure that they are receiving what they need from the company, right? Which is, as we say, it's different type of experiences that you have that your colleagues don't. And so those are the two things that I really try to really look at, is the attraction, and then of course the retention, and ensuring we can continue to keep that talent.
If I may, April, I want to piggyback on the concept of retention and DEI. It's not something you can just wake up one day and do. I've never been a part of an organization that formally labeled it, but it was always something in the back of leadership's mind that we had to have diverse teams, because it doesn't allow jokes to take place, quite frankly, because a diverse team is not going to let that happen. But I would speak to the concept here at Port Houston, when we want our leadership who happen to not be of color to be comfortable with being uncomfortable with having the right people in the room. Let me say it again, being comfortable with being uncomfortable with the conversation. That has to happen. Otherwise, the barriers don't get broken down, and sustained talent walks out the door, because folks don't leave organizations. They leave bad leaders.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So what was some of the feedback that you received with respect to why those female IT professionals at your company wanted to leave? Like that, what was the reason for the high turnover, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it touched on just different things, right? Not having, being able to have this shared experience, right? Having someone to talk about, right? Hey, these are am I going crazy? But I kind of feel this is an undertone racial thing going on, right? And not really having that individuals that have
Mhm.
gone through what they've gone through. And so that's why I think it's very important as leaders within the IT organization that are African Americans,
Mhm.
that we establish mentor relationships, right?
Right.
We need to make sure that we are there for the younger generation, right? Look, like I said, when I started over 20 years ago,
Mhm.
I didn't have that mentorship. I didn't have people that looked like me to mentor me, right? And so I think it's very important that we understand that once you're in the room, you have a responsibility to ensure that you mentor those around you, right? And I think, you don't have to have gray hair and be an older person to be a mentor. You can mentor anyone with where you are as far as what your
Right.
experience is. So I think that's also a misconception that you have to be older to be a mentor. But I think as long as you have experience and that you can say, look, I've been there, let me help you through some of the challenges, then you're prime for being a mentor for anyone.
Agreed. And Farrell, do you want to chime in, and what are some of the challenges that you faced as an African American in technology, and how were you able to successfully overcome them?
Thank you for that question. So let me say first and foremost that it's good to hear that others are encountering similar issues and challenges and how they're addressing them. To the previous question, some of the issues that we've had is that when we hire African Americans, females, and African American females, their opportunity to advance would end up being outside of the organization. And so it's one thing to talk about diversity and inclusion on that initial hiring aspect. It's a whole nother issue to talk about that when you talk about levels of advancement.
Right.
And so that's one of the issues that we are currently with our diversity and inclusion department and that we created at HCC that we're attempting to address and to look at and use the data in terms of the discovery that we're doing there and to help with some of that attrition. But to the question of challenges that I face, and I'll go back to Robert's comment about being repeatedly tested. The challenge of constantly proving myself is a way of life. And it's one that is a part of this, in this industry that I've accepted. And now I even look forward to the challenges. And that's one way that I've been able to manage that expectation. I'm clear that that's not going to go away or not anytime soon. So I'm very intentional and deliberate about doing the best job that I can, making myself and others, encouraging them from the aspect of gaining some training and knowledge, professional development. In addition to just the technological skills, but also ensuring that there's training and activity and opportunity for networking and engaging with audiences like this and with panels such as this and individuals such as this. And trying to use my experience to influence the culture and to get others to become comfortable with, the code. Computers and codes don't recognize gender, ethnicity,
right,
and skin color. And so I'm trying to influence that type of culture that, we have people in roles of color and females in these areas, and they're getting the job done. And I make certain that I get others to draw attention to the successes for certain. And so still the largest challenge that I face is that of continuously having to prove myself. And so it's an accepted practice and something that I think we all accept and deal with.
Absolutely.
Hey, if I can piggyback on that last thing,
Sure.
that proving yourself oftentimes it manifests itself as somebody talking around you in the room, as if this person over here is really the authority. And so I think we've all gotten really good at reclaiming our power and authority when that happens. It's like, no, I'm the voice in this room.
It's an
I've
art.
earned it. Indeed. Indeed.
It's an art. That's across all professions. Our next question is for Robert. African Americans represent a very small percentage of people in the tech industry. Why do you think the percentage is so low, and what can be done to get more African Americans interested in technology? I think we touched on a bit of that, but if you want to elaborate on what can be done to get, people more interested.
Yeah, so I'll double down on the concept of diversity and equity and inclusion. It's a buzz phrase, but it actually is a powerful metric. And most organizations talk a big game about DEI. They're into diversity, equity, and inclusion. What they're really into is trying to get diversity, and they mess that up. Okay. And they mess that up because they come out with this message, and I think Danielle spoke to it, of I can't find them. Okay. Well, if you're going to catch fish, maybe you ought to fish where the fish are. Right. Okay. And so this notion of going to HBCUs, not just the majority serving institutions, recognizing at majority institutions that Black folks, people of color, aren't in the traditional places. They're not going to necessarily be in the placement office. You got to go find them and work for them, but they're there. Drop this assumption that they don't exist. They exist. I got to go find them. So that's really point two. Then is this notion that I like to describe as qualified and qualifiable. Organizations use this notion of, are they qualified? And then can I qualify them? Are they qualifiable in my culture? And the first is kind of easy because that's skill assessment. But this second one, qualifiable, that's about unconscious bias. If they don't look like me, if they don't talk like me, if they don't come from my school, then I'm going to assume that they're not necessarily qualifiable. And I start to weed people out. So this notion of changing the processes so that people can be both vetted from a qualified standpoint and a qualifiable standpoint is critically important. Equity is all about work processes. Are you making work assignments fairly so that people get plum assignments? Are you recognizing, rewarding, paying people fairly? If those things don't happen, Gen X, Gen Z, they're the quickest ones to grab their hat and say, see you later. I'm done with this. And so until you get into those processes and make sure that they're equitable, and then think about environment and culture, people are going to grab their hats and coats. And so it's going to be very hard to change those numbers. You really do have to work on the E&I part of
the E&I before. Okay. Got it.
I would also say that we have to face the reality that there are no such things as 10, 20, and 30-year employees anymore. If you are mentoring people effectively, you can place them somewhere, and when they gain the knowledge they need as a great leader, they'll come back to you.
Right. That's an important point that I've tried to share with my father. So Charles, this next question is for you. How valuable is mentorship for Black and Indigenous people of color that are pursuing careers in technology?
I would say that I would venture to say everyone in this call had a mentor directly or indirectly that gave them an opportunity to take on a project that someone said no one's going to be able to do that. And then when you work the hours that were required to be successful, then you were able to share that knowledge. I can easily say that mentorship for people of color, regardless of gender, race, whatever characteristic or category you want to put them in, you will not be successful. But your mentor needs something in return. You have to gain their trust before they will speak for you, before they will put you on a vital project. that requires that the mentee often volunteer for things outside their comfort zone. I continue to talk about being uncomfortable. Being the only person in the room, and some IT professionals are introverts. Sometimes you got to move outside that comfort zone. But as you know, and some senior IT professionals are unapproachable. Find someone that they know to make the introduction. And if you get an elevator ride and get 3 or 4 suggestions, you happen to bump into them from time to time in places you might see them. Mentorship does not have to be sitting across the table. Sometimes it's just a word of encouragement, but I encourage anyone who has an opportunity to be a mentor and a mentee. And as Danielle said, age does not matter being a mentor.
Absolutely. Agreed. And the past 2 years have taught us that we must be able to respond quickly and adapt to changing marketing conditions. How can organizations continue to drive their digital innovation?
Well, the word digital innovation reminds me of digital transformation and the concept of a distributed workforce. For some, I would say Metro, Port Houston, where 66% of your workforce has to be physically where they are, is going to be an ultimate challenge. But as technology evolves, as the concept of a distributed workforce and teleworking and remote work take a stronghold, when collaboration is seen as an office productivity tool versus a passing fade, I believe digital transformation, digital innovation will continue.
Yeah, I agree with Charles. I think even during the pandemic, right? The pandemic actually showed us as a world that, you know, the traditional working in the office is no longer, right? We can do whatever we need to do sitting at our home, right? And so I think that has fast forward technology during the pandemic is now companies realize that you don't have to be in the office, right? That we can work wherever throughout the world, whether it's in our living rooms, in our homes. So I think that has also really helped us take it to the next level as far as, you know, digital transformation, and it will continue, right? As we start to just veer into what this new working environment experience is for us.
April, I would add that as a result of COVID and the fact that technology changes literally on a daily basis. So our institution as well, particularly from an administrative standpoint, we could not have convinced literally anyone that remote work and instruction and, you know, and even hybrid work would garner the type of success that we were able to garner as a result of being pushed and having to move to that. And but from looking at our data and at the statistics, and particularly from an IT perspective, our productivity has gone, you know, shot up just in amazing ways across the board. Of course, there are roles and activities that we have to have people on site,
Right.
but there are roles and activities that when we have some of our team members and staff on site, they never see an individual or other than those that maybe they're in a room with on a, you know, from a contact desk or help desk perspective. And so there are roles that we've identified for hybrid work culture, and we're working with that across the board to identify those that so that we don't go back to an unnecessary normal.
Right.
And so we're looking at what that new norm is. And it's telling us that from our perspective, that hybrid work culture is here to stay.
April, there are 2 questions. I'm sorry, there are 2 questions in the Q&A. How do you want to address those before we run out of time?
Oh yeah, we are running out of time, so. All right. Let's see. For older professionals not working directly in the IT field, are not necessarily comfortable in the arena, what can one do to ensure that they remain technologically proficient and relevant in their chosen vocation? That's a good one. Yeah. And feel free to jump in, anyone.
Well, I'm going to jump in. because that's part of the mission for ITSMF is to provide a platform for people to continue to grow and develop. I would say get connected with BDPA, get connected with Blacks in Technology, getting connected with Black Girls Code, these organizations that are out there that can help you continue to refresh your skill set, even if you're not directly working at the moment into those areas. Certifications, sort of step away from this notion of I got to get a 4-year degree. There are all kinds of certification opportunities for people to go and get their skills refreshed. Read. I know that's a bad word. People don't like to do reading anymore, but reading actually won't hurt you. Engage and read and invest time and energy to refresh yourself. But as I said before, this is a relationship business. Getting connected with these organizations where you can build networks and relationships that you can then use to help refresh your skill set is so critically important.
April, I would add that the technology here today and going forward will be an aspect of literally any job that you can have or that you want to aspire to. I don't want to do a shameless plug for HCC, but I'm going to do that. At HCC, we have classes that meet and fit any and all of your technology training needs. So by all means, come to us. And to be fair, that there are others that provide those services as well. Maybe not as good, but we do have opportunities for that. And in all seriousness, we have classes for seniors. We have a program for that we refer to as Silver Eagles. And we actually have provided people, and so by AARP standards, I think 55 and older, but some of our seniors are 70, 65, 75 years old, and they are involved in the technology classes. Yeah. And so, and they're, we provided devices for them, et cetera. And so don't please, to the hearers of this message, don't let age be, anything that intimidates you with respect to your ability to learn about technology.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. Thank you. We had one more question, if I can squeeze this in, guys. And we just touched on that a little bit. There have been many older Black Americans over 40 who lost jobs in traditional and perhaps now outdated occupations due to the pandemic. Some of these individuals have not recovered and found new jobs due to racism and ageism. What opportunities do you see in technology for this demographic?
Well, I won't comment on the last part as it relates to ageism and racism, but I will say that for me personally and professionally, having started out as a desktop technician all the way up to a CIO, you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn every year. Learn, unlearn, and relearn based on your base skill set. You have a responsibility as a professional to learn, unlearn, and relearn your craft, regardless of what technology tumbles forward.
Oh, wow. Good point. Anyone else like to say anything else? I think we have run out of time. And I think Ruben wants to do the closing remarks, but I enjoyed speaking with you all today and I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you, April. This was a wonderful event. I can definitely say I was very interested in everything that all of the panelists shared. I think we all can take away something from today's conversation. I hope all of you viewing this program enjoyed it as much as I did. It was truly captivating to hear each of our panelists' experiences and outlooks. These are the types of conversations that have a meaningful impact across sectors and they spark change. To our panelists, thank you for sacrificing time out of your busy schedules to share your thoughts and outlooks in technology and the African American community. As a token of our appreciation, all of you will be receiving an award in the mail as a symbol of our gratitude and recognition for your contributions as African Americans in technology. Thank you again for your participation. It was wonderful. I also want to say thank you to our EEO and employee relations team that led the creation of this program, to Mr. Lambert, Karen Kaufman, and our board of director members for their continued support, as well as to our marketing teams that helped assist in announcing this program. For our Metro employees, stay tuned for announcements on our next DEI event in March honoring Women's History Month. Our organization development team has also scheduled DEI related training in March titled Inclusive Leadership and Beyond Diversity. So take a look at that through our LMS. I would encourage all of our employees to visit Absorb, which is our LMS, to register for our upcoming training opportunities and the available e-learning content. Remember, there are still licenses available to use our e-learning content, but they are available only on a first come and first served basis. Lastly, for those of you that were participants in our trivia contest, the winners will be determined here shortly, as we still have to review our attendance for today's call. Hope all of you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you again to everyone that was a part of this program. This is now the end of our program. Thank you and have a wonderful day.